Hello everybody, I promised that I would, and so today I am here to review this. My father's new daily, a BMW 440i in a frankly ludicrous specification. This car is stunning. I still can't believe he bought it. This is the daily driver of a man who does not like blue cars. So let's talk a little bit about this car. This car was bought by the dealer principal of BMW in Cobham, and he ran it around for about 6 months as his daily driver. So this car has taken all of the best bits, not just from the BMW options list, but the M Performance accessories kit too. Now, the most obvious thing about this car is this striking Mexico blue color, which is taken from BMW's individual color scheme. BMW occasionally chuck out cars in really tasty colors. They've done a few in Ferraris, Rosso Corsa. They also have a really great shade called Java Green, which looks like it could be a Lamborghini color. Now, I'm not entirely sure about the origins of this paint color. I said originally that it was a Porsche color, and Porsche have certainly used this color on their cars, notably their RS models. But there's also a possibility that it could actually be a Ford color, because Ford, of course, have done some models called Mexico. I looked up some pictures on the internet, and they are available in a shade that looks pretty similar to this. So if anybody happens to know exactly where this color's been stolen from, please tell me in the comments. You have these darker kidney grills at the front, and I do want to point something out because it's probably going to be obvious as Dan gets his lovely close-ups and things here that the car has not been cleaned. Now, I've got this car because it has to go back to the dealership for some work to be done on it to rectify a couple of things that should have been picked up during the PDI. So I have been forbidden from cleaning this car. So I apologize that it's presented in the state that it is, but I think you can still get a pretty good idea of what it looks like. But I am not allowed to clean this car for my filming because that's up to them to do that. You also have from the M Performance accessories kit this gorgeous carbon fiber splitter at the front, which I think really makes the car. This is real carbon fiber. It is pretty sexy. And just around the corner for Dan, as I'm trying to get him to go up and down as much as I can, you have these wheels. These are, again, M Performance accessory wheels, and not cheap ones. I think the paint color on this car lists at something like £400,000, and they are nearly £3,500 for these wheels. You have black accents here. You have these M Performance side skirts as well, with a little bit of black trim and the M Performance logo at the back. Coming round to the back of the car, you have the nice LED tail lights, and you've got the BMW LED lights at the front as well. You've got this little carbon fiber high-rise lip spoiler at the back, which is quite similar to the one that's on my M3. And you have the M Performance exhaust system. Now, some people have got just the M Performance exhaust tips because they like the little carbon fiber surround exhaust tips. This has a full catback M Performance system. Especially when it's cold, this sounds really tasty. And they can't actually sell a car with that system on anymore thanks to the new WLTP regulations, but this one has it, and it's a very pleasant sound, but I'm going to talk about that more when we're on the move. Now, the interior has a very controversial choice of specification. It is supplied with the opal white merino leather. It's not quite the full leather option, but there's more of it in this car than you would have as standard. So you've got this really nice diamond effect stitching thing in the side here. White leather seats. Now, I know what you're thinking. White leather seats, blue jeans. Are they going to last long? I'm not so sure, but they do look good for now. You've got full electric control in here. You've got Harman Kardon sound system. You've got all the goodies. The car has the 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox that appears in basically everything from prams to supercars these days. Otherwise, it's fairly standard sort of high-spec BMW with this piano black trim and just a lot of black and chrome and stuff everywhere else. But overall, this car really does stand out. When I first went to look at it, it was in a car park with, of course, a huge other number of BMWs, including some M4s, but this is the one that caught my eye, and it's mostly really because of this fantastic exterior paint. But of course, a BMW, if it's going to live up to its tagline of being the ultimate driving machine, can't just look good, it has to drive well too. So let's find out. So, things get off to a pretty good start for the 440i then, and they only continue once you're on the move. From the moment you press the start button, this does feel like something just a little bit better than the ordinary. That M Performance exhaust adds a real character to the engine's note, and that engine is itself something of note. That is the reason why this is a 440 and not a 435i. Now, the 435 used the familiar N55 engine that's been around in BMW terms for a little while now, and is the basis for the S55 engine used in the M4 and now the M2 competition. This car uses what BMW call the B58 motor. It is a clean sheet engine design from BMW. It has absolutely nothing to do with their previous engines. And it's designed to be a modular engine too, so you'll find versions of this in 6, 4 and 3-cylinder format in the Mini, the i8, basically everywhere. So it's a very versatile thing. The new design also features a closed deck block and a number of forged internals. Unlike the full-fat M4, this engine features a single twin-scroll turbocharger to produce an output of around 320 horsepower and 330 pound-foot of torque. That torque is available from almost nothing, and despite peak power being developed in the engine's last 1000 RPM, it is clear that this motor does its best work in the mid-range. In an M car, that would be unforgivable, but here I am willing to be more lenient because in normal driving situations, this engine is more than capable. And the interior, I have to say, is nice, but it's not one that I'm in love with. It's another one where they seem to have put a big screen here that looks like it should disappear, and it actually doesn't. Whether you can actually see that past my little Panasonic, I don't know, but there you go, it's here. So everything, of course, works in here. Everything feels like it's a fairly high quality, high standard. The seats are nice to be in. This wheel is a bit too big and padded for my liking, but BMW seems to be going down that route these days, so not fond of that. I do like the heads-up display that this car has. Those are great. Really big fan of them. I don't know why my dad has re-enabled the speed limit warning on the heads-up display, because this car has a near total inability to actually get the speed limit that you're in correct. It is forever getting it wrong or not reading a sign properly, or it's just, I turned it off for a reason. It just gets annoying. And you've got all the usual refinements. You've actually still got a CD player in here, which is quite novel to see in 2018. They have DAB radio, which is basically England's answer to Sirius XM, and all these other lovely things. So I got no real complaints about the interior itself. Now, you've got 4 driving modes in this. You've got the Eco Pro, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus. Those will change how sharply the throttle responds, what the engine sounds like in this car. They'll change the adaptive dampers, and in Sport Plus, it'll also loosen off the traction control just a little bit. Compared with my father's previous daily, which was the CLA45, this really does feel like a much more mature platform. It's a grown-up's car. The CLA45 and the A45, it's the sort of thing that I should be driving around in, not my dad. This is much more suitable, I think. I tried to talk him into a 6 Series, but he's not quite ready to commit to that just yet. All right, let's flick it into manual mode, 3rd gear, 40 mile an hour, 50, 60. It pulls hard from low down, this car, really hard. There certainly is a turbo lag there, but it's very minimal. The thing makes a lovely noise. It just thrusts you forward. It's sensible, it's mature, very pleasing. It gives you a feeling of something that's really quite strong. I mean, to put this into context, I've just been out doing some filming with my 625 horsepower supercharged E92 M3. There's someone in a Mustang having a good time. This feels every bit as fast as my E92 when you're just strolling along at this kind of RPM. I'm not joking, that's really how it feels. It's really effortless, it's lovely, just pushes you forward. Now, yes, of course, that's because, you know, the E92, it's an old school M power plant, you've got to rev it. I'm not really going to bother comparing those two cars because they are just night and day different. The reality is that my E92 isn't even close to a standard car anymore, so it's just not worth worrying about. Now, one thing they perhaps do have in common is an unusual thirst. This, of course, is nowhere near as bad as the old V8 M3, but neither is it quite as good as you hope it might be. It has been averaging just over 30 to the gallon. Considering I used to get that out of my old E46 330, it's not particularly impressive for a brand spanking new next generation engine. You really would have hoped that it would be a little bit better. That being said, Dad has probably been enjoying driving it just like I am. So if you think that I'm going to give this car a 5-star glowing review, perfection in every way, I'm flying the BMW flag now, you know, love everything that they do, you're wrong. While this car is on these kind of roads, fast, flowing, smooth, nice stuff, dual carriageways, you know, going to and from work and all that sort of stuff, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It is the perfect car for what my father needs it for. However, when you decide to take it out onto your favourite little stretch of British B road, it all starts to go a bit wrong. Allow me to demonstrate. When faced with a road like this, it doesn't take very long for everything about the 440 to unravel. You see, the thing is, it's massive. Really, really big. All I can see out the front is just this massive slab of bonnet with no idea where it finishes. And a near total lack of steering feel doesn't help either, making placing this enormous car on the road even more difficult. And it gets worse. That engine, which is the 440's standout feature on A roads, turns into something of an Achilles heel in more difficult traction situations. We were out filming our drive-bys this morning when it was a little bit colder, a little bit glossier out there, and I went totally sideways at a corner, completely unintentionally. Unfortunately, Laurie didn't capture it, otherwise I'd be showing you that glorious moment, but I got zero intention of repeating it because it really did take me by surprise. Now, the gearbox is excellent, and the gearbox certainly goes a long, long way to making up for other deficiencies in the car. Sometimes I've driven cars with this 8-speed ZF, and it does a lovely job when you're poodling around town, all that sort of stuff, but when you ask it to do something a bit sporty, it's not interested. This, though, it's absolutely perfect. It does exactly what you tell it to, when you tell it to, and it does a pretty damn good job of it too, I must say. To be honest with you, I should be absolutely loving this road. I used to drive down here in my E46 3 Series all the time, and it was just so much fun. I've driven this road for over a decade and I love it to pieces. Right now though, I'm just thinking about how I can get off it in the quickest possible way because, as you may have seen just there, there's not a lot of room for me and other road users. You certainly can't go down here with any kind of vigor because, well, If someone in a Range Rover's coming the other way, I'm in trouble. And that's a real shame, because in the title for this video, I've of course lured you in by inviting comparison with the M4. Now, the truth is that the M4 is actually even bigger, even wider, has even more torque, and is even worse at keeping the rear end in check than this thing. But with the M4, I can maybe give it a little bit of a pass, because the M4's taken on such a different character from what the M car used to be. It's a different thing entirely now, but this I'd hoped would be a little bit more civilized in that regard, and in truth, I probably would prefer to have one of these over an M4. But really, you're going to need to use it for very specific things. You know, there's a lot of places I wouldn't take this because it is just too bloody big. And that really is something of a shame. Perhaps the best person to buy this car is a younger guy who's going to buy it and want to mod it. Because these engines, I'm told, are absolutely incredible for tuning. Now, the last car was very much a darling of the remap scene. Now, you then go and put a proper limited slip diff in this, give it some decent wide rear rubber, do some body kit to it, put a suspension on it, you're gonna have a serious car for some serious money. What does serious money mean? Well, the list price of this car, with all of the M Performance add-ons, is near as makes no difference, £60,000. Or, to put it another way, the same as a basic, unoptioned M4. Selling one of these when you have a huge selection of lightly used M4s on the market is even harder. So the last time I checked, you had about 3 or 4 of these around in the mid-30s. And when you look at it like that, this is incredible value for money. This is an obscene amount of car for that kind of cash. Is it what my 3 Series used to be? No, not at all. However, for my old 6 Series, suddenly, it all makes sense. You see, my 645i was another car which was a little awkward to thread down a country lane, didn't have a great view out, but had an engine that was absolutely awesome and a very plush interior. The 4 Series feels very much like that car did, even being more or less the same size, certainly from the driver's seat, but it looks way, way better than that car, and so for someone looking for a high-end cruiser on a relatively modest budget, it could be the ideal car. And at the other end of the spectrum, for someone looking to build a cool modified car from a slightly different starting point, this next generation car may have all the qualities you're looking for. So there you have it, the 440i. It's not a perfect car, not at all, but it could be perfect for you. There you go. Tell me what you think of this car in the comments, guys. Do you like the spec? Would you have it this way? Would you have a new 440 over a used M4, or would you just go straight for the M car? Personally, I think there's something cool to be said about going for this and doing something a bit nuts and a bit different with it. You know, I always like trying to do things a little bit differently where I can, but hey-ho. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye-bye.